Coming up on SUTV, we'll brief you on the remaining presidential candidates.
And we will talk to a professor about the Electoral College. Stay tuned.
Welcome to our political episode of The Other Show. I'm Morgan Crookston.
And I'm Alex Greenwell.
Voting is underway for SU campus elections that will conclude later this evening. The SU general election covers most of the positions for the SU Student Association with 2 or more remaining candidates. Voting is open for all SU students until 5 p.m. Results will be announced at 5:30 following the vote. Current campus voter turnout is at about 26%. Elected representatives will serve for the 2020 and 2021 term. To vote, log into your SU portal, the SU app, or visit su.edu.
So I definitely love to see that we now have these campus elections going on, and it's been interesting to see who our candidates are, because we have a lot of new faces this year, which I'm really excited about.
I agree, and if you're looking at the student body president candidates, you can see that these are people that are, they're well versed at the SU culture, and they're experienced in this local, school government, and I'm excited to see who will win and what kind of platform they can push and kind of get us up to date.
I think whoever wins will be a good candidate for our school.
I agree.
Candidates for president are currently fighting to gain delegates as the presidential primary grows closer. A delegate is an individual that represents their state at national party conventions. Typically, delegates vote according to their district's popular vote. However, an exception to this is superdelegates. These delegates are unpledged delegates who choose for themselves on whom they want to vote for. Utah has 35 Democratic National Convention delegates. 29 of those are pledged delegates, while 6 are unpledged.
Coming up, we'll hear about the Electoral College from a political science professor.
Stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Special Agent Diana Berrigan from the TV show White Collar. Did you know that it wasn't until 1972 that the first female earned an FBI Special Agent badge? Now women are helping solve crimes around the world in faraway places like Sarajevo, New Delhi, Lagos, and Tbilisi. To all our women fighting crime at home and overseas, thank you for keeping us safe. Happy anniversary.
Don't worry, 74 people were picked before me in the NFL draft.
To fight childhood obesity, United Way and the NFL are helping kids play at least 60 minutes a day.
Okay, time for the team obstacle course. Yay!
What this place needs is more healthy kids. To get involved or donate, go to unitedway.org/play60.
Now I get it.
Welcome back. Since the election in 2016, the Electoral College has been in the forefront of Americans' minds. I had the opportunity to speak with Professor Doug Bennett, a political science professor here at Southern Utah University, who broke down what it does and why he thinks it's necessary.
Election Day, the day to choose a new president for a new century.
When the writers of the Constitution were trying to define how we should decide a president, they came up with many ideas, including a lottery and direct democracy. They eventually settled with the Electoral College. I spoke to Doug Bennett, a professor of political science at Southern Utah University, to explain what it is and how it works.
And that if you want to understand what the role of the college is, it's useful to bear in mind the differences between the House and the Senate. You have the House, which the House of Representatives, right? And those people are representative, and they are apportioned, which means their number is determined by the population of the state. So we have in Utah 4, in California it's probably closer to 44, 48. Why? Because California is so much bigger, right? Mm-hmm. That's appropriate. We have 2 senators, they have 2 senators. How can that be? We're both states. So the balancing effort here is with population and states. And if you were to get rid of the Electoral College, the smaller states would immediately pay a price.
Bennett, who is a supporter of the Electoral College, said it is a more thoughtful process because it takes into account the interests of all states.
A thoughtful process than if you just give the election to anybody who gets 50% plus one vote. So I think the college takes into differences. The various states are, the least populated state, Wyoming, the most populated state, California. Their policies are different, their interests are different, and yet they both deserve to be heard. California should get recognition of the fact that it has so many more people, and Wyoming should get recognition of the fact that, like California, it's one of the 50 states.
The Electoral College has become more controversial over the years. The 2016 election was one of 5 instances in the history of the United States in which the candidate who won the popular vote did not become the president. The others were in 1824 with John Quincy Adams versus Andrew Jackson, 1876 with Rutherford B. Hayes versus Samuel J. Tilden, 1888 with Benjamin Harris versus Grover Cleveland, 2000 with George W. Bush versus Al Gore, and in 2016 with Trump versus Secretary Clinton. In the case of 2016, Hillary Clinton won the popular vote by more than 3 million votes. To those who doubt the democraticness of the Electoral College, Bennett continues on by saying that sometimes the majority opinion is not what is actually necessary for a complete union, citing the Civil War as an example.
The majority is not always right. Sometimes majorities are wrong. We fought, to some degree, a big civil war over this. If you had put slavery to a popular vote in 1860 in Alabama and Georgia, it would have passed overwhelmingly. The maintenance of slavery. We broke it up. It almost, it did tear us in half, but it almost destroyed the Union. We broke it up. It was a civil war, not a war between two sovereign powers, because we were sufficiently united as a country, and Lincoln was willing to, frankly, preside over the biggest government expansion in history by sending troops to the South, first to Fort Sumter and then to engage throughout the war, to keep us one country. It wasn't to maintain a popular vote or a majoritarian system. It was to maintain a system of Republican democracy where the people elect their representatives and leaders, and then those representatives and leaders act on behalf of the people. That's what the college does. You elect the electors, and then the electors represent you in the selection of a president.
The Electoral College has a great impact on the actual selection process.
Electors meet, they call out the names of the states alphabetically, the votes are cast and counted in public, and I think, it may be a little creaky and it's certainly kind of old, but I think it's working pretty well.
The 2020 presidential elections are just around the corner, and it is no doubt that the topic of the Electoral College will come back up. This time around, hopefully we'll be better informed on what it is and how it works. For SUTV News, I'm Morgan Kirkston.
Conversation, especially about the Electoral College, which on its own can be pretty controversial, but it sounds like I definitely learned some insights on the system.
I agree, yeah. He was able to kind of explain to me that there are, there's obviously two different sides, the people that obviously want it abolished, but him explaining to me that the United States is not just a pure democracy, it's a republic. There's a separation of power between the federal government and the state government. And for this to kind of continue on, the Electoral College is necessary in his eyes. So it was a very interesting conversation.
It's an interesting concept to learn about and think about.
Coming up, we'll take a look at the presidential candidates.
Stay tuned.
What do you think it would be like to teach? Chances are, you have no idea. Teachers today are breaking down obstacles, finding innovative ways to instill old lessons, proving that greatness can be found in everyday places, and that you don't need to be famous to be unforgettable. That's what it's like to teach.
You know what, guys? There's a lot of tree branches and dry brush over here. We should probably move the bonfire over there.
I'm guessing Smokey liked that idea.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds.
The presidential election is coming up quickly, with Democratic primaries currently underway. Reporter Alex Schilling took a look at Democratic primary frontrunner Joe Biden to give us an idea of his policies and what he stands for.
America is an idea. This is a central point behind Joe Biden's run for the presidential nomination. Biden is the current frontrunner as a part of the Democratic primaries and is seen as a more moderate choice that could appeal to a wide range of voters. His campaign is focused on bringing America back to some of its most integral attributes. The belief that Americans can accomplish anything they work towards, and that America is an example for the world. Biden hopes to treat everyone with dignity and respect, build a middle class for everyone, and fight back against the abuse of power that we see today. He hopes to be the president that will stand up for every citizen of the country. But what do Biden's plans actually look like? Biden refers to the middle class as the backbone of America, and he plans to bring the middle class forward. His plan is a $1.3 trillion infrastructure investment over 10 years across the entire country. This plan aims to create union jobs to expand the middle class, build resilient infrastructure while reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and revitalize communities across the country. Some of the biggest parts of this plan include vast improvements to transportation, such as revitalizing the railways, bringing broadband to every American household, and modernizing the nation's school system. He plans to pay for these endeavors by charging the super wealthy for it, reversing excess Trump tax cuts for corporations, cracking down on tax evasion, ensuring companies pay their share, closing tax loopholes, and ending fossil fuel subsidies will all be used to pay for every cent of this plan. Biden's plan for the world stage is another pillar of his bid for the election. Biden wants America to lead by example and bring foreign policy into the future. These plans start at home by reinforcing our own democracy. This includes remaking our education system, reform the criminal justice system, return to the daily press briefings to the public, and much more. These at-home efforts will strengthen the country and lead into renewed efforts to strengthen alliances by hosting a summit of Democratic leaders across the world. This summit's purpose would be focused on fighting corruption, defending against authoritarianism, advancing human rights within each country as well as globally, and more. While Biden has seen criticism for not going far enough with many of his planned policies, he hopes to strengthen the country and stand for every citizen that calls it home.
Running on a platform to kind of return the United States to where it was 15 years ago.
Yeah, and that might explain why the demographic that is voting for him right now in the state primaries that have happened are typically older voters.
Yes.
And also
substantially, like a large margin of older voters are supporting him.
Older voters and particularly black voters, which might come from him being the vice president to Obama, which is understandable. He is also seen as the more moderate candidate for the Democratic Party, which I think can be valid. He definitely has a history of bridging the gap between the left and the right, but it's going to be interesting to see how later state primaries, as they decide who they want to have represent them, how it's going to move forward.
I agree. He's an interesting candidate, and he has a lot of history in the United States, so it's going to be an interesting next couple months.
For sure.
Now let's take a look at the other potential Democratic nominee, Bernie Sanders.
I like what your campaign stands for. I agree with what your campaign stands for.
Bernie Sanders, a 2020 Democratic presidential candidate, has served the U.S. representative for 16 years before becoming a junior United States Senator from Vermont in 2007. Bernie was born in 1941 in Brooklyn, New York, and got into politics at a young age because of his feelings against World War II. Bernie declared his run for president last March for the 2020 election. Bernie's platform stands as follows: Medicare for all, college for all, expand Social Security, eliminate medical debt, high-speed internet for all, and more. Bernie will be debating running mate Joe Biden on March 15th in the Democratic presidential primary debate.
I very much look forward to the debate in Arizona with my friend Joe Biden.
So Bernie Sanders, he's a really interesting candidate, especially because here in Utah, he's the one that won the Super Tuesday election vote along with California.
In the primaries.
Yep, in the primaries. And it's kind of interesting to see what demographic is voting for him. It's typically younger voters and also Latino voters, which explains why he won a lot of the California vote. And the numbers that he's pulling from those demographic groups are very high. It's very interesting to see.
Exactly. Well, his support, well, it sometimes can come across as being, a highly specific group of people. It is very strong. His supporters feel the burn deeply.
Yes.
And his policies seem, they're substantially more left-wing than Biden. But they share a lot of things in common. They share the fact that they want to strengthen jobs for the middle class. They want to increase taxes on the wealthy and high-speed internet. And I think, again, as he said in the package, it's going to be an interesting debate in Arizona.
That's for sure. President Trump is a surefire Republican candidate, so let's take a look at some of his proposals for the 2020 election.
Make America Great Again was the war cry of Donald Trump and his supporters in 2016, and as the 2020 election nears, the slogan has changed to Keep America Great. Let's take a look at how President Trump plans to fulfill his promise to keep America great.
Everything is going up. Thank you, Donald. I love you.
Trump has proposed a record budget of $4.8 trillion for the 2021 fiscal year, which offers insights to his priorities as president, according to the New York Times. The proposal requests $2 billion to build 82 miles of border wall. Alongside building the southern border wall and cracking down on immigration, Trump has also proposed a merit-based system that would prioritize accepting migrants who have specific job skills instead of those with family ties who have relatives living in the U.S. According to a Twitter post from the president himself, he promised that if reelected, he would start removing, quote, millions of illegal aliens. However, he has not provided further details as to how. Another proposal from the president is to reform Medicaid and undo Obamacare. His proposed budget cuts spending on Medicaid and subsidies for the Affordable Care Act by a combined $1 trillion. During Trump's first year in office in 2017, congressional Republicans tried to undo Obamacare but fell short, dealing Trump one of his biggest legislative setbacks as president. The Trump administration also ended subsidies to help low-income people afford health insurance and cut payments to insurance companies to cover sick patients. Trump has proposed that Congress cut student loan initiatives, which has been a long-time incentive for teachers, police officers, and government workers, that cancels the remaining federal student loans after a decade of payments by $170 billion. Along with that, Trump proposes to cut education by 8%. Trump has proposed a $105 billion budget, a 14% increase for veteran affairs, including additional funding for suicide prevention, opioid addiction services, and healthcare. The administration reserved some of its deepest cuts for the Environmental Protection Agency, which would face a 26% reduction in funding and the elimination of 50 programs that Trump deemed wasteful. Or Trump proposed a reduction in funding to food stamps that would cut $180 billion between 2021 and 2030, leaving many with reduced or no coverage. As the 2020 election draws closer, President Trump's platform becomes more apparent. Voting opens November 3rd.
So the $1 trillion cut to things like Medicaid and Medicare and food stamps is an interesting take, for sure. And it is in a direct conflict with what he has actually campaigned on before in 2015 and 2016. And even up until very recently, he has said, we're not going to cut any of those entitlements. We're going to protect them, but not anymore.
It definitely is interesting to see, because he has been president for the last 4 years. So it's, 3 years. But it's been interesting to see how his campaign from 2016 has echoed into his presidency. For one thing, I definitely think that Donald Trump, no matter where you fall on the left to right spectrum, or if you're more independent, he definitely has started a lot of conversation about politics here in the U.S. I don't think anyone will deny that.
Exactly. Yeah, he's pushed a lot of issues that have been kind of simmering to the forefront. It's getting a lot of people really involved. People that weren't initially involved in politics are now very much, advocates for whatever their purpose is.
Particularly in rural communities and the backbone of America. After the break, we're going to play a game that will test how familiar our contestants are with political parties.
Don't go anywhere.
Looks like it's done.
Don't let salmonella get funky with your chicken. On average, 1 in 6 Americans will get a foodborne illness this year. You can't see these microbes, but they might be there. So learn the right temperature to cook each type of meat. Keep your family safe at foodsafety.gov.
Thank you, dear. Well, you're very supple. It's like I was at your age. Back then, I was a sex expert. Used to call me the buttered biscuit. I know about birth control, too. So you can ask me anything, baby.
Bedsider.org has birth control information and a lot more. And it's...
Have you had sex in this car yet?
Toxic chemicals and carcinogens are leaching into the environment. It's happening right where we live, work, and play. Everywhere. Cigarette butts are toxic waste. Let's stop the toxic litter. Learn more at rethinkbutts.org.
On average, I spend 8 hours a week on the road. It's important to me to make the right choices when I drive. And she's the reason why I support MAD.
Welcome back. For our final segment of today's show, we're going to play a game called
Guess That Bureaucrat! We're going to give our contestants a political quote, and they'll have to guess if the person who said it was a Republican or a Democrat.
We'll add up the points, and whoever wins will get infinite glory, and the loser will get nothing. Let's meet our contestants.
All right. Hi. I am Jess. I have been on the show a lot, so. And
I'm Alex. I'm only recently actively getting into politics, so I don't know how I'll do in this.
yeah, I don't really know that much about politics. I mean, I watch some stuff, but I don't check in on it every day. So let's see how we do.
All right, if you guys are ready, we'll get started.
Great.
Okay, quote number 1. If you take out the killings, Washington has actually become a very low crime rate. Has a very low crime rate, pardon me.
I'm going to say Republican?
I'll go with Republican as well.
That is incorrect. That is a Democrat. It is Marion Barry.
Oh.
Off to a rough start, but you guys can get through.
Start.
All right.
But we have so many more options.
Working on
it. Got a lot of points up for grabs. Okay, number 2. Those who have survived the San Francisco earthquake said, "Thank God I'm still alive." But of course, those who had died, their lives will never be the same again.
Wow.
I'll go with Democrat.
I'll say Republican.
Alex is correct. It is a Democrat. It is Barbara Boxer.
Okay,
1 point on the board.
Barbara.
1 point
let's
on the
go.
board. We still have a lot of time to go.
Okay.
Okay. 8 more days and I can start telling the truth again.
I want to say Republican.
I'll go with Democrat this time. Or again.
Alex is correct.
Oh,
it is
wow.
a Democrat. It is
Alex?
Chris Dodd.
Okay, Alex is kicking my butt so far.
Alex apparently knows his Democratic
There you
quotes.
go.
Yes.
Okay, this one. I'm a huge supporter of women. What I'm not a supporter of is liberalism. Feminism is what I oppose. Feminism has led women astray. I love the women's movement, especially when I'm walking behind it.
Okay, I'm gonna say Republican.
I'll go with Republican as well.
That is correct. That is a Republican.
Can I guess who said it?
Of course you can. For an extra point?
Yes, extra point. I'm gonna try and even the score a little bit. I want to say Rush Limbaugh, maybe?
You are correct.
Ooh.
That is Rush Limbaugh.
Ooh, all right. Okay.
A controversial quote for sure.
Yes.
That definitely is true.
Okay, the next one. Carbon dioxide is portrayed as harmful, but there isn't even one study that can be produced that shows that carbon dioxide is a harmful gas.
I'll go with Republican.
Yeah, I'll say Republican too.
That is correct. If you guys want to guess the politician or the notable person who said it, you can for an extra point.
I'm not sure.
I really have no idea.
That is Michelle Bachmann.
Interesting.
Okay.
So far, Alex is pulling ahead still. Jess is 1 point behind, but she can
1
catch
point.
up.
Exactly. Only 1 point.
I'll make it.
There's a lot of space to grow.
We got some time.
Okay. Exercise freaks are the ones putting stress on the healthcare system.
I'll say Republican.
I'll go Democrat.
It is a Republican.
Ah, yes.
Oh,
Okay.
we're tied right
tied now.
For an extra point,
Right.
can anyone get a guess? Alex, you can even guess, even though you guessed it was a Democrat.
I
but
have
now
no
you know.
idea. I'm sorry.
I really don't know.
It's your favorite, Rush Limbaugh.
Rush,
go.
I should have guessed. All right.
Okay, another one. In Delaware, the largest growth of population is Indian Americans moving from India. You cannot go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent. I am not joking.
I'll go with Democrat.
Yeah, I'll say Democrat.
That is a Democrat. Does anybody have any guesses?
Biden. Joe Biden.
Okay, and?
I'll say Joe Biden too.
It is Joe Biden.
Wow, we're
Yes,
tied.
a controversial comment from our Democratic presidential nominee right here. Okay, next one. I even for the sake of argument that I even accept for the sake of argument that sexual orgies eliminate social tension and ought to be encouraged.
I know this one. Okay, so it is a Republican.
Okay.
I'll go with Republican as well.
That is a Republican.
I guess I shouldn't have said that I know it.
Yeah, you give it away.
It is a Republican.
That one was Justice Scalia who said that.
That is correct.
That is correct.
That is correct. Okay,
Jess
I think
has pulled ahead.
we have
right.
time for one more. If Alex gets it correct, we'll have a tie. Okay, let's see.
Let's go.
I believe in an America where millions of Americans believe in an America that's the America millions of Americans believe in. That's the America I love. That is a tough one to spit out.
I'll go with Republican.
Tongue twister.
I'll say Republican too.
Those are correct. That is a Republican.
Is
Ooh,
it
Jess
Limbaugh?
is still ahead.
Rush Limbaugh?
No, that is incorrect. Not Rush Limbaugh.
Is it Mitt Romney?
That is correct, Mitt Romney.
Mitt Romney.
Jess won. Jess gets infinite glory. Alex gets nothing.
Thanks.
Yes, thank you so much for this participation.
Nice
Thank
try
you.
to both of our
Yeah, it was
contestants.
I
Those were
really
some-
don't know a lot about
Yes,
politics.
exactly. And
but,
for people that don't know very much about politics, you can
Sounds
really
impressive.
identify your political quotes.
Yeah, definitely some interesting
Thank you.
quotations right
I
there.
watch a lot of talk shows.
Oh,
so
okay.
Very nice.
Very nice.
Well, that is all the time we have today. Thank you to our game show contestants.
And this is not exactly politics related, but it does impact us here at the studio. It was just announced today that Southern Utah University, along with 7 other higher education institutions, will be moving classes to online only in order to hopefully prevent a potential COVID-19 outbreak.
With that information, it is totally possible that this is our last show of the season. We will update you when we have more information. If that is the case, thank you for being our viewers. That is all we have for you today. Thanks for tuning into the other show.
you.